Since the beginning of time, we've wandered the earth with a starry-eyed belief in what we couldn't see, the paranormal. From ghosts, demons, sirens, fairies, and angels, stories of supernatural happenings have never failed to captivate us. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 spine-chilling mysteries that delve into the depths of the paranormal. The Zozo Demon. The Zozo Demon is a spirit who you may not have heard of. This mysterious and newly discovered entity is not one to take lightly, and the story of its existence is as frightening as it is interesting. The Zozo Demon is a mischievous spiritual entity that makes contact with humans through the use of Ouija boards. Those who have reported to come into contact with Zoho state that he reveals himself by guiding those using the Ouija board into making figure 8s, before moving frantically between the letters Z and O. Zozo's interactions with humans often begin friendly and cordial, but they soon turn frightening. Zoho has been reported to curse and threaten those who are present at the Ouija board. Believers in the existence of Zoho state that he has his origins in ancient times, dating back to societies from thousands of years ago in Africa. Still, his beginnings are shrouded in mystery. However, the first textual reference to Zoho first happened in 1818, in a book with the story of a young village girl who stated that she had been possessed by 3 different demons called Mimi, Crapule, and one named Zozo. In 2009, after years of obscurity, the demonic presence of Zozo began to undergo significant popularity through the work of a man named Darren Evans. Evans, a man from Oklahoma in the United States, claimed that he had come into contact with a demon called Zozo. Evans published his account through a website. In his post, Evans detailed how he had been interested in ghosts and the occult from a young age. Still, he admitted he had never seen or experienced anything like the demon Zozo. Zozo was different. Evans stated that Zozo revealed himself regularly, too many times to count. Zozo would adopt the presence of a friendly spirit before changing to more aggressive behavior, often cursing in what Evans described as looked like Latin or Hebrew. I was genuinely fascinated and startled by how many times Zozo showed up, even in many different states and many different Ouija boards, Evans wrote in his famous post. He continued to assert that Zozo also made many threats against his young daughter, who was still a toddler. Evans claims that Zozo nearly drowned her in the bathtub and infected her with an unknown affliction or illness. He stated this is when he began to suspect a demonic attack. The post by Evans soon started to gain traction among fans of the paranormal online. Readers began to tell their own stories, many with striking similarities to that of Evans. Whether or not you believe in Evans' story, many who fear the occult certainly do. In 2012, an independent feature film named I Am Zozo was released, which actually features a cameo by Darren Evans himself. The Exorcist priest and the devil. Even the agnostic knows that in religious doctrine, the devil is not someone to mess around with. The red-horned, fallen angel himself is the main antagonistic figure in Christianity and often symbolizes all of mankind's sins and the potential fall that any person could make from God's kingdom. As such, many priests and religious figureheads take it upon themselves to fend off demonic behavior or possession in order to protect people from untold harm. The most common and well-known method adopted by these priests is the act of exorcism, or sacred and holy rite that expunges demonic entities from their unwilling hosts. Father Gabriel Amorth is one of those priests and is one of the most famous exorcists in all of history. But this particular story centers on Father Gabriel Amorth's close contact with the demon of darkness himself. Our story begins in 1997 in Italy's capital. Rome, known for its devoted followers of Catholicism, was no stranger to exorcisms, but this particular case would forever haunt Father Gabriel for the years to follow. One day, a young peasant man is brought to Father Gabriel and into his exorcism room. Gabriel immediately knew something was off. He had felt it many times before. The man stood before him bore an evil presence. Knowing that he would need to expunge the demon from the man in front of him, Gabriel spoke and asked for the assistance of Jesus to guide him. Immediately, the young man started to spit and curse at the priest. Strangely, the man spoke in English and not Italian, which was his native language. Marcello Stanzioni, author of The Devil is Afraid of Me, the life and work of the world's most famous exorcist, wrote the following on the incident. His curses and threats were aimed solely at the exorcist. Then he began spitting at him and preparing to attack him physically. Screaming and howling, the demon burst forth and looked straight at him, drooling saliva from the young man's mouth. Father Gabriel quickly began to recite prayers towards the demonic man, telling it to reveal its true identity. "Unclean spirit," Father shouted, "whoever you are and all your companions who possess this servant of God, I command you, tell me your name, the day and the hour of your damnation." The reply was shocking and chilled Father Gabriel to his core. The man stared at him with glazed eyes and spluttered, "I am Lucifer." Retelling the story years later, Gabriel stated that he began to send a flurry of prayers towards the possessed soul, specifically reciting verses of liberation from the Roman rite of exorcism. The demon writhed in pain from the father's words. The person before him began to violently fling his head back and roll his eyes so that Gabriel could no longer see his pupils. He stretched and shrieked endlessly, and the man's back held arched for a quarter of an hour. As the exorcism carried on, Stanzioni writes, the room became exceptionally cold. Ice crystals formed on the windows and the walls. The young man's body stiffened so much that he became rigid and began to levitate. For several minutes, he remained hovering 3 feet in the air. After floating in the air, the possessed man eventually fell and dropped into a chair. Father Gabriel Amorth had managed to quell the power of the beast. Father continued to visit the man each day. He would pray over the unfortunate man until he received no more resistance from him. Finally, the man reached a point of peace, and it was clear that the devil was no longer using him as a host. Father Gabriel Amorth took the opportunity to ask the man how Lucifer had left his body. The man replied that he began to howl like never before. Then, at the end of this, he felt new and light. Haunting of Viaduct Tavern. Paranormal experts across the United Kingdom acknowledge the Viaduct Tavern as one of the most haunted locations in the City of London. The tavern has a history rich in suffering, making it a perfect location for hauntings and spirits lingering on Earth. It first opened in 1869 and remains one of the only gin places in the City of London. Gin was much cheaper than beer at the time, and gin appealed to the parts of the population that were more strapped for cash, such as the working class and unemployed. Adding to the occasionally seedy nature of the Viaduct Tavern patrons was its prime location across from a prison that conducted popular public executions. People flocked to the tavern on execution days and treated the spectacle as great entertainment. It was said that you could see the proceedings from every window of the viaduct. The building's location also had ties to a second prison, as it was rumoured to have been built on the remains of a demolished debtors' prison, and the last remaining cells from its previous life still remain in the tavern cellar to this day. Many people say that much of the paranormal activity that can be seen and felt in the building largely emanates from one of these cells, where local legends claim that a debtor was left to pass away. Although the tavern's history of loss of life and criminal activity might lead one to believe that there would be several vengeful ghosts haunting the grounds, it seems that the vast majority of the spectres and paranormal activity on the premises are harmless. Many even think that there is a friendly poltergeist that haunts the premises, pulling pranks on the patrons and stealing their drinks when their backs are turned. In the 1980s, the daughter of the landlord reported hearing footsteps come up the stairs to the room where she was reading a newspaper. The paper was jerked from her hands, and the footsteps receded back down the stairs. Some have reported feeling strange taps and brushes, but when they look, there is nobody there. A pair of electricians doing maintenance in the same loft where the newspaper was snatched reportedly witnessed a heavy roll of carpet lift into the air of its own accord and thump back to the ground. Sometimes the stories aren't so harmless, and many of these more sinister stories focus on the spooky ancient jail cells in the cellar. A former landlord reported that he entered the cellar to get supplies and the heavy door suddenly slammed and locked. The lights went out and somebody whispered, "There's just 2 of us down here now." The landlord was locked in the basement with what was presumably the spirit that haunted the cell until his wife heard his cries for help and rescued him. Many more visitors to the Viaduct Tavern have felt menacing energies or a cold breath or hand brush across the back of their neck when viewing the supposedly haunted cell. This reputation of both friendly and unfriendly ghosts is what has earned the Viaduct Tavern the reputation of one of the most haunted buildings in London. Stories of hauntings and ghostly activity have prevailed as a source of entertainment for centuries, and likely will come in this fashion for many centuries to come, sending shivers down the spines of both believers and non-believers of the supernatural. Even though skeptics might point to occurrences of hauntings and photo evidence of ghosts as mere hoaxes, even the harshest cynic cannot deny that occasionally there are energies that lurk amongst us that are hard to explain any other way than by acknowledging them as distinctly ghostly. But what do you make of these mysteries involving the paranormal? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.